The handcuffs were cold against my wrists as Detective Rodriguez read me my rights. The words echoed hollow in my ears, mixing with the chaos of flashing cameras and shouted questions from reporters who had somehow already assembled outside Rivera and Chen Forensic Accounting. Sarah Chen, you are under arrest for the murder of Marcus Rivera, murder. The word felt foreign, impossible. Just 12 hours ago, Marcus and I had been working late, going over client files like we had countless times before. Now they were telling me I'd killed my best friend, my business partner of 7 years, the man who'd been the best man at my wedding. The evidence was damning, even I had to admit that. My fingerprints were on the antique letter opener, the one Marcus had given me as a joke when we'd first opened our practice, engraved with "For cutting through the BS." It had been plunged into his chest with what the coroner called professional precision. Security footage showed me entering the Meridian building at 9:47 p.m., just 15 minutes before the estimated time of death. Worst of all, the night janitor, Eddie Morales, had heard us arguing through the thin office walls. She was screaming about missing money, Eddie told the police, his weathered face twisted with discomfort as he spoke to reporters, said something about trust and betrayal, got real heated, the missing money. God, if only I'd kept my mouth shut about those discrepancies I'd found in the Henderson account. $300,000 that didn't add up, client payments that seemed to vanish into thin air. I'd confronted Marcus about it that night, demanded answers. He'd gotten defensive, told me I was being paranoid, that I should trust him after all these years. Now that conversation had become my motive for murder. My phone buzzed incessantly with calls from reporters. Channel 7 ran a special segment, Forensic Accountant Turned Killer. The Sarah Chen story. They used my professional headshot alongside Marcus's graduation photo, the contrast stark, me looking stern and calculating, him young and innocent. The headline read, "Did greed drive her to murder?" My mother called, her voice shaking. "Sarah, tell me this isn't true. Tell me you didn't, Mom. Of course I didn't kill him." Marcus was like a brother to me, but I could hear the doubt creeping in, even in her silence. When my sister Lisa called later, she was more direct. "The evidence looks really bad, Sarah. Maybe you should consider a plea deal." The betrayal of my own family cut deeper than any accusation from strangers. David Kellerman, the defense attorney I'd hired with my rapidly dwindling savings, wasn't optimistic. He sat across from me in the county jail's visiting room, his expensive suit a stark contrast to my orange jumpsuit. "I'll be honest with you, Sarah, this case is going to be tough. The prosecution has motive, means, and opportunity. Your prints on the weapon, security footage placing you at the scene, and a witness to your argument about money." He shuffled through his papers. "The DA is offering manslaughter, 15 to 20 years. "I didn't kill him," I said for the 100th time. Kellerman nodded, but his eyes held the same doubt I'd seen in everyone else's. Even my own lawyer thought I was guilty. As I sat in my cell that night, listening to the sounds of the county jail, the distant sobbing, the guards' conversations, the fluorescent lights humming overhead, I realized my life as I knew it was over. 7 years of building a reputation, of earning respect in my field, of creating something meaningful with my closest friend, all destroyed in a single night. But the worst part wasn't the destroyed career or the potential prison sentence. It was the growing certainty that Marcus, the man I'd trusted with everything, had somehow orchestrated his own perfect murder and made me the perfect suspect. 3 weeks into my nightmare, Marcus's sister Elena came to visit. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and she clutched a cardboard box like it contained her brother's soul. "I thought you should have these," she said, sliding the box across the metal table. "Marcus always said you two shared everything. Maybe there's something in here that will help your case." The box contained remnants of our friendship, college textbooks we'd shared, old photos from accounting conferences, even the ridiculous world's best CPA mug I'd given him for his birthday 3 years ago. At the bottom, wrapped in tissue paper, was our old advanced forensic accounting textbook from Professor Morrison's class, the one where we'd first dreamed of starting our own practice. Back in my cell, I flipped through the familiar pages, remembering late-night study sessions and shared ambitions. That's when I felt it, a slight thickness between pages 247 and 248. Carefully, I peeled back the binding to reveal an envelope with my name written in Marcus's distinctive handwriting. For Sarah, open only if something happens to me. My hands trembled as I tore it open. Sarah, if you're reading this, then I'm either dead or might as well be. I pray you never have to see this letter, but if you do, you deserve to know the truth about everything. I've been stealing from our clients for 2 years. It started small, just borrowing from the Henderson account to cover a bad bet. I was going to pay it back, I swear. But the debts kept growing, and the people I owed weren't the patient type. 300,000 became 500, then 8. The Kowalski Retirement Fund, the Morrison Trust, even the children's charity account, I took it all. When you started asking questions about the Henderson discrepancies, I panicked. I knew you'd figure it out eventually. You always were the better accountant. The body they found isn't me, Sarah, it's Danny. The letter slipped from my numb fingers. Danny, Marcus's twin brother who died in a car accident 6 months ago. The funeral I'd attended, the tears I'd shed for a man I'd known since childhood. I forced myself to keep reading. Danny's accident gave me a terrible idea. I'd been keeping his death secret, collecting his disability checks. When I realized how much trouble I was in, I saw an opportunity. The dental records on file were Danny's from when we switched identities as kids to get out of school. The morgue wasn't careful. They thought they were releasing Danny's body to me, but I buried an empty casket. I'm so sorry, Sarah. I know this makes me a monster, but I saw no other way. I staged the scene carefully, used Danny's body, planted the evidence, even cut myself to leave blood traces before I disappeared. I knew they'd suspect you because of our argument, but I thought your lawyer would get you off. I never imagined it would go this far. Check behind the false panel in my desk drawer, third from the top, left side. I've left copies of everything, the real client files, bank records showing where the money went, even photos of the staged scene. There's also a USB drive with security footage I copied before I deleted the originals. The timestamp shows me leaving the building alive at 11:30 p.m., long after you'd gone home. I know you hate me now. I hate myself, but maybe this can set things right. Marcus P.S. I'm sorry about the letter opener. I knew using your gift would hurt the most, but I needed something with your prints. I've kept it all these years, because it reminded me of our dreams. Now it's become the symbol of how I destroyed them. The letter fell to the floor as rage consumed me. 7 years of friendship, of shared dreams and mutual trust, and he'd thrown it all away for gambling debts. He'd used our bond, our history, even my own gift to him, as weapons against me. But worse than the betrayal was the calculated coldness of it all. He'd planned every detail, anticipated my reactions, and still let me sit in jail for 3 weeks while my life crumbled. The remorse in his letter felt hollow compared to the meticulous cruelty of his actions. I thought of my mother's wavering voice, my sister's suggestion of a plea deal, my lawyer's doubt. Marcus had known exactly what this would do to me, and he'd done it anyway. As I sat there in the fluorescent-lit cell, clutching the evidence of my innocence, I felt something cold settle in my chest. Relief at knowing the truth, yes. But beneath that, something darker was growing. A need not just for justice, but for Marcus to pay for every moment of humiliation, every destroyed relationship, every night I'd spent in this cage. He thought he was safe, wherever he was hiding. He thought his letter would be enough to ease his conscience. He was wrong. I played the part perfectly. When Kellerman arrived the next morning, I handed him the letter with shaking hands and tears in my eyes, which wasn't entirely an act. The relief was real, even if it was mixed with something much darker. "This changes everything," he said, scanning Marcus's confession. "We can have you out by tomorrow." "Thank God," I whispered, letting him see only gratitude. "I just want my life back." But as Kellerman rushed off to contact the district attorney, I was already planning something else entirely. Marcus's letter had given me more than evidence. It had given me a roadmap to find him. The hidden panel in Marcus's desk yielded exactly what he'd promised: bank records, client files, and security footage. But I studied them with different eyes than my lawyer would. While Kellerman focused on exonerating me, I focused on the money trail. Marcus had been clever, but I was a forensic accountant. Following money was what I did best. The transfers led through 3 shell companies to an account in the Cayman Islands, then to Costa Rica. A man named Michael Rodriguez had purchased a beachfront property in Tamarindo 6 months ago, right after Danny's funeral. The photos in the real estate listing were distant, but I recognized Marcus's posture, his preference for corner units with 2 exits. I could have turned all of this over to the FBI, should have, but simple justice wasn't enough anymore. Marcus needed to understand what it felt like to have your life destroyed by someone you trusted. My release made headlines. Wrongfully accused accountant freed after partner's deception revealed. Perfect. I played the grateful victim in every interview, never mentioning that I knew Marcus was alive. Let him think he was safe, that his letter had bought him peace of mind. While pretending to rebuild my life, I spent weeks creating Michael Rodriguez's perfect business partner. Elena Vasquez, a Mexican-American investor with connections to U.S. pension funds looking for offshore opportunities. I crafted her digital footprint carefully, LinkedIn profile, business registration, even fake client testimonials. Every detail designed to appeal to Marcus's greed and overconfidence. The first contact came through an encrypted email service. Mr. Rodriguez, I represent several pension fund managers seeking confidential investment opportunities in Central America. Your name came highly recommended for your discretion and accounting expertise. Would you be interested in discussing a potential partnership worth $50 million USD? His response came within hours. Eager, greedy, exactly as I'd hoped. Over the following weeks, I built Elena's relationship with Michael. I dangled opportunities that played on everything I knew about Marcus. His need to prove he was smarter than everyone else, his compulsion to take increasingly bigger risks. I mentioned pension funds he'd actually embezzled from, using inside knowledge only someone who'd worked with him would know. But I also planted seeds of paranoia. Elena worried about Costa Rican banking regulations tightening. She'd heard rumors about American authorities tracking offshore accounts more aggressively. She suggested that the really big money required meetings on U.S. soil with clients who insisted on face-to-face verification. I understand your caution, I wrote as Elena, but my clients won't commit $50 million without meeting their financial advisor. Perhaps Miami? It's discreet, and you could be back in Costa Rica the same day. I watched Marcus wrestle with temptation through our exchanges. He knew returning to the U.S. was risky, but $50 million was enough to disappear anywhere in the world. I played on his arrogance, suggesting that someone with his skills could easily avoid detection for a simple business meeting. The final hook was pure manipulation, using 7 years of friendship against him. Between you and me, Michael, I've heard there are federal agents asking questions in some Costa Rican expat communities. Nothing specific, but my contacts suggest someone matching your description. Probably just routine, but if you were planning to relocate anyway, this opportunity could fund a very comfortable fresh start somewhere more private. That message did it. Within 24 hours, Marcus agreed to a meeting in Miami Beach. The Fontainebleau Hotel, he suggested, public enough to seem safe, upscale enough for high-stakes business. Perfect. I'd chosen the location carefully when I'd suggested Miami. The Fontainebleau would be hosting the International Financial Crimes Prevention Summit that week. FBI agents, financial reporters, and fraud investigators from around the world would be attending. Marcus thought he was walking into a business meeting that would set him up for life. Instead, he was walking into his worst nightmare, a very public reunion with the friend whose life he'd destroyed, surrounded by every law enforcement official equipped to bring him to justice. But first, I wanted him to see my face when he realized what 7 years of friendship was really worth. The Fontainebleau's lobby buzzed with conference attendees, badges reading International Financial Crimes Prevention Summit hanging from lanyards around their necks. I sat at the arranged table in the hotel bar, wearing Elena Vasquez's business attire and watching the entrance like a hawk. Marcus arrived precisely on time, scanning the room with the paranoid awareness of a man living under false identity. He looked good, tanned, relaxed, his hair slightly longer than I remembered. The stolen money had bought him a comfortable life while I'd rotted in jail. He approached the table cautiously, his eyes searching for Elena Vasquez. I let him get close, let him see my face fully before I spoke. Hello, Marcus. The color drained from his face. His hand instinctively moved toward his jacket, old nervous habit when he was caught off guard during audits. For a moment he looked exactly like the friend I'd once trusted with everything. Sarah, his voice was barely a whisper. What are you? How did you find you? I'm a forensic accountant, Marcus. Following money trails is literally what I do. I gestured to the chair across from me. Sit down. We have so much to catch up on. He glanced around the bar, calculating escape routes. But conference attendees surrounded us, and I'd chosen our table specifically, backs to the wall, clear view of all exits. You got my letter, he said, sitting heavily. The evidence cleared you. I kept my promise. Your promise? I laughed, the sound harsh enough to turn heads at nearby tables. You mean the letter you left to ease your guilt while you sunbathed in Central America? How thoughtful. Sarah, please, I know you're angry, but angry? I leaned forward, my voice dropping to a hiss. I spent 3 weeks in county jail while you played dead on a beach. My family thought I was a murderer. My career was destroyed. My marriage is over. Did you know James filed for divorce? Of course you didn't. You were too busy spending stolen retirement funds. Marcus's eyes darted around the room again. Keep your voice down. People are staring. Let them stare. In fact, I raised my voice slightly. Why don't you tell everyone who you really are, Michael Rodriguez? Or should I say Marcus Rivera, the dead man? His facade crumbled. You're insane if you think. I think you should see what $50 million really looks like. I slid a tablet across the table, showing bank records from our client accounts. Your handiwork all documented. The Kowalski Retirement Fund, the Morrison Trust, even the Children's Charity. You were thorough, I'll give you that. Marcus grabbed the tablet, his eyes scanning the evidence. How did you get these? My records were encrypted. Your password was Danny's birth date. Same as always. I watched realization dawn on his face. You always were predictable, Marcus. Even when you were framing me for murder. I never meant for it to go that far. You thought I'd take a plea deal and do 5 years for manslaughter while you lived it up in paradise. I pulled out my phone, showing photos of his beachfront property. Nice place. The victims of your theft would love to see how their life savings bought you that ocean view. Marcus lunged across the table, grabbing my wrist. Sarah, stop. You don't understand. There are people, dangerous people who were looking for me. If I hadn't disappeared, you'd have faced the consequences of your choices instead of making me face them for you. I can make this right. The money, I can return most of it. We can say I was in hiding, afraid of the gambling debts. We can work together like old times. Like old times. I yanked my hand free. You used our friendship, our trust, even my gifts to you as weapons. There is no going back. Marcus's desperation peaked. He stood abruptly, his voice rising. You want to destroy me? Fine, but I'll take you down with me. I'll tell them you knew, that you helped plan this whole thing. Who do you think they'll believe? The woman who just spent months planning an elaborate revenge scheme, or the victim of her obsession? The bar had gone quiet. Phones were already out, recording. I saw at least 3 FBI badges among the crowd. Agents I'd anonymously tipped about a wanted fugitive appearing at the conference. Go ahead, I said calmly. Tell them how I helped you murder your own brother and use his body to fake your death. Explain how I assisted you in stealing $800,000 from retirees and charities. I'm sure they'll find that very credible. Marcus saw the trap closing. His eyes found the FBI agents moving closer, the phones recording his every word, the conference attendees who specialized in financial crimes watching his meltdown with professional interest. You bitch, he snarled. You think you're so smart. Some of that evidence you just showed me, how did you really get it? Breaking into my apartment, hacking my accounts. You've committed crimes too, Sarah. Federal crimes. My stomach dropped. He was right. In my obsession with revenge, I'd crossed lines that could destroy me all over again. I'd become so focused on exposing him that I'd forgotten how my methods would look to investigators. Marcus saw my reaction and smiled, the same confident smile he'd worn when closing difficult deals. That's right. You're not the victim anymore, Sarah. You're a co-conspirator in a very public meltdown. Hope your revenge was worth it. FBI agents were almost upon us when Marcus made his move, bolting toward the lobby exit. But I'd anticipated this too. Hotel security, alerted by my anonymous tip about a potential financial fugitive, blocked his path. The conference erupted into chaos. Cameras flashed, attendees shouted questions, and Marcus, the man who'd been legally dead for months, found himself very much alive and very much trapped in the most public way possible. As federal agents surrounded him, I realized Marcus's final threat might be the most devastating of all. In my hunger for revenge, I'd given him one last weapon to use against me. The chaos in the hotel bar provided perfect cover. While FBI agents struggled through the crowd of conference attendees, Marcus slipped past hotel security toward the emergency stairwell. I followed, my heart pounding with a mixture of triumph and dread. His threat about my illegal methods echoed in my ears, but I couldn't let him escape, not when I was this close to complete vindication. The stairwell was empty, our footsteps echoing off concrete walls as we climbed. Marcus was breathing hard by the 5th floor, the comfortable life in Costa Rica having softened him. I stayed close, driven by 3 weeks of rage and months of planning. "Sarah, stop," he called over his shoulder. "This is insane. You've won, I'm caught. Isn't that enough?" "Not even close," I gasped, pushing through the door marked roof access just behind him. The Miami heat hit us like a wall. The Fontainebleau's rooftop stretched before us, air conditioning units and maintenance equipment creating a maze of hiding spots. But Marcus wasn't hiding anymore. He walked to the edge of the building, his hands raised in defeat. "You want the truth?" he shouted, turning to face me. "Fine, you want to know why I really did it? I know why. Gambling debts, greed, cowardice. It wasn't just gambling debts, Sarah, it was Antonio Vega." The name hit me like ice water. Every forensic accountant in Miami knew that name, the loan shark who'd been connected to 3 suicides of debtors who couldn't pay. "I owed him $2 million, Marcus continued, backing closer to the roof's edge. "Not just me, you too. He knew about our partnership, our shared accounts. He said if I couldn't pay, he'd take it out on everyone I cared about. My sister, my mother, you. You're lying. Am I? Check your apartment, Sarah. See if anything's been moved. Your mail opened and resealed. They've been watching you since this whole thing started." My blood went cold, the weird feeling I'd had that someone had been in my apartment while I was in jail. The way my neighbor Mrs. Patterson had mentioned seeing repairmen in the building. "I faked my death to protect us both," Marcus said. "If I disappeared, Vega would assume I was dead and write off the debt. You'd be safe. So you destroyed my life to save it. I left you evidence to clear yourself. I never thought it would go to trial, because you thought I'd take a plea deal and quietly disappear into prison while you sipped cocktails on a beach." Marcus's composure finally cracked. "Yes. God, yes, okay. I thought 5 years of your life was worth both of us staying alive. I thought you were strong enough to survive it." The admission hung between us like a physical thing. 7 years of friendship, reduced to a cold calculation of acceptable losses. "And now?" I asked, stepping closer. "Now that I've exposed you, what happens to my family?" "To me, Vega's people will come looking. They'll want to know where the money went, and when they find out you helped expose me." He shook his head. "You should have let sleeping dogs lie, Sarah." The irony was devastating. In my quest for revenge, I'd put everyone I loved in danger from the very people Marcus claimed he'd been protecting us from. "There's still a way out," Marcus said, sensing my hesitation. I jump. "They find my body this time, real suicide, case closed. Vega writes off the debt because I'm genuinely dead. You go back to your life, and everyone stays safe. Or you let me disappear again. New identity, different country. I'll send you proof of life every year so you know I'm suffering somewhere. But I stay hidden, and Vega never knows I survived." The choice hung before me like a blade. Justice meant Marcus facing trial, but it also meant putting my family at risk from dangerous people I'd never considered. Revenge meant watching him jump, or letting him escape, neither of which would satisfy the burning need for vindication that had consumed me for months. Behind us, the roof access door burst open. FBI agents poured onto the rooftop, weapons drawn, shouting commands. "Sarah Chen, step away from the subject. Marcus Rivera, hands where we can see them." Marcus looked at me one last time. "Choose quickly, Sarah, justice or safety. You can't have both." But in that moment, watching the FBI agents advance, I realized Marcus had made one final miscalculation. His desperate confession about Antonio Vega, his admission of faking his death to escape debts, all of it had been captured by the wire I'd been wearing. The FBI hadn't just been tracking Marcus. They'd been investigating Vega for months, and my anonymous tips about a fake death connected to money laundering had given them exactly what they needed. Actually, I said, loud enough for the agents to hear, I think I can have both. Marcus saw the triumph in my eyes and lunged toward the roof's edge. But Agent Rodriguez was faster, tackling him to the ground just feet from the drop. As they cuffed Marcus, he looked up at me with something that might have been respect. You always were the better accountant. The Wire had captured everything: his confession about faking his death, using Danny's body, stealing client money, and most importantly, his connection to Vega's operation. In trying to threaten me one last time, Marcus had handed the FBI the biggest case of their careers: justice and safety, wrapped in one perfect recording. 6 months later, the headlines told a different story. Forensic accountant's courage brings down major crime ring. My face appeared on magazine covers as the woman who'd exposed both financial fraud and organized crime connections. The Wire recording had given federal prosecutors everything they needed to dismantle Antonio Vega's operation and charge Marcus with conspiracy, fraud, faking his death, and accessory to money laundering. All charges against me were dropped. The evidence I'd gathered through questionable means became irrelevant once Marcus's confession provided legal justification for everything. My reputation wasn't just restored, it was enhanced. Clients lined up, offering cases that could define my career. But success felt hollow. I sat in my rebuilt office, staring at a new letter opener on my desk. This one a gift from a grateful client whose pension fund Marcus had stolen from. The irony wasn't lost on me. Everything I'd lost had been returned with interest, yet I felt emptier than when I'd been sitting in that jail cell. My mother visited more often now, pride replacing the doubt that had crept into her voice during those dark weeks. My sister Lisa had apologized tearfully for suggesting the plea deal. Even James had called, tentatively asking if we might try counseling. But trust, once shattered, proved harder to rebuild than a career. The real damage was internal. I'd proven I could be just as calculating and ruthless as Marcus when pushed far enough. The woman who'd orchestrated his downfall wasn't someone I recognized, and I wasn't sure I liked her. Sleep came fitfully, filled with dreams of choices and consequences. What if Vega's people had found my family first? What if Marcus had actually jumped? What if my hunger for revenge had destroyed innocent lives instead of saving them? The invitation arrived on a Tuesday. Federal Correctional Institution Coleman visitor approved. Marcus had requested to see me. I'd ignored the first 3 requests, but curiosity finally won. What could he possibly have left to say? The prison visiting room was sterile and cold, nothing like the luxurious hotels where we'd conducted our final confrontation. Marcus looked older, grayer, the Costa Rican tan replaced by the pallor of incarceration. He slid an envelope across the metal table. I've been writing this for months, he said quietly, trying to find the right words. I opened it reluctantly, expecting more justifications or attempts at manipulation. Sarah, I know you probably hate getting letters from me, but this might be my last chance to tell you something important. I've had a lot of time to think in here, and I finally understand what I really did to you. I didn't just steal money or fake my death. I stole your ability to trust, to believe in friendship, to feel safe in the world. Those are things money can't repay. But I need you to know something about that first letter, the one you found in our textbook. I left clues deliberately, hoping you'd choose justice over revenge. The accounting textbook, the specific page numbers, even the way I signed it. I knew if anyone could trace my steps and expose the truth legally, it would be you. I was hoping you'd prove you were better than me. And you did. Your revenge could have destroyed both of us, but instead you found a way to save everyone, even me in a way. 25 years in prison is better than being dead, and it's definitely better than looking over my shoulder for Vega's people for the rest of my life. I can't give you back what I took, but maybe I can give you this permission to stop hating me. The Sarah I knew was too good for the darkness I pulled her into. Don't let my betrayal change who you are. You won, Sarah, not just the case, but the choice to be better than your worst impulses. I hope someday you can forgive yourself for being human. Marcus, I folded the letter carefully, looking at the man who'd been my closest friend and my worst enemy. Was any of it real? Our friendship, our partnership, the dreams we shared. All of it was real. That's what made the betrayal so easy. He paused. And so unforgivable. I stood to leave, then turned back. I forgive you, Marcus, not for you, for me. I'm tired of carrying this anger. Walking out of that prison, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: peace. Marcus was right about one thing: I'd won. Not because I'd destroyed him, but because I'd chosen justice over vengeance when it mattered most. The desire for revenge was finally gone, replaced by something better. The knowledge that I could be trusted with power, even over someone who'd wronged me terribly. Some betrayals teach us to close our hearts, others teach us how strong our hearts really are.